Hello, this is live from the internet. This is Sudden
ZN
Live.
Live.
Hello, Mark. Here I am with Marc
Hi,
Wright.
hey
Hello,
Jesus.
everybody. Today we have Phil traveling actually from UK to here to Brussels, so that's why he cannot join. And also Liora is in several meetings, so it's a full week for all the team. And for me, it's a good opportunity today then to be here and have a talk with Marc Wright, which is a great pleasure. Hello, Mark.
Hi
Uh,
Jesus. It's great to be on the show.
it's already I think we saw each other a long time ago because
Yeah,
I think we had some collaboration some time ago with
that's right.
some projects of internal communication. Marc Wright is the founder of Simply Communicate. He's got a big trajectory already on internal communications. He's been the founder of Simply Communicate. Also is an expert in internal communication in large organizations. And also he's been, along his career, chairman of major UK internal communication agencies. So it's a big pleasure to have you here, Mark. Thank you for joining us. Today, mainly what we're going to talk is about that, is about how internal communication is nowadays and how this has been evolving for the last year.
Yeah,
And actually, with the big revolution we're living with the digital is not only affecting external communication, but also internal and the way we work together. We as a network, we have also, we see how actually this is affecting the way we work today. So how do you see it? How do you see that the digital space is helping all this, all the internal communication, mainly on large organizations?
yeah. Well, what has happened in the past year, 2 years, has been development which normally happened in 10 years. What we'd expected to have happened in 10 years has happened overnight because of the pandemic. Now, clearly, we've seen it with Teams and everyone going on Teams, but now that we have hybrid working and when we poll our membership, people are working about 1.2 days a week in the office. So that's a lot of time that they're not in the office. And consequently, there's now a huge demand for digital workplaces. So beyond Teams, they're looking for tools, particularly for frontline workers, where we can talk to each other, we can talk to leadership, and leadership can talk to us. And so that's the big revolution that's happening. We're currently putting in a platform for 270,000 employees around the world for a large financial institution. That wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the pandemic. The pandemic accelerated it. So yeah, massive explosion in the digital area.
I can imagine, and actually, we as an organization, we are also living that. We are a network with people all around the world, and so we see how digital is helping all of us to do that. But not only on situations like the pandemic because of the remote first, but also I presume that the internal communication deployed in the digital space is also helping for situations of risk, like I don't know, like a crisis like what we're living now in Ukraine. Is how do you see that?
Yeah. I mean, it's one crisis after another, isn't it? I mean, we're basically living in a period of constant change, of massive change. And the biggest change really is the relationship between employees and the company they work for. Because what they've understood is that on the one hand, they don't have to go in 9 to 5, but on the other hand, that life is precious, that we only have so many years, so many months, so many days on this earth. So I'm going to use my time in a way that suits me, rather than necessarily to pay the mortgage. And that change in power and that change in emphasis is enormous. It's like as big as the Industrial Revolution. Nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows how it's going to pan out. But the one thing that we're seeing at the moment is that senior management are getting very, very nervous about engagement. They're getting very, very nervous about what sort of relationship their staff have with them when they're only in the office 1 or 2 days a week. And so engagement is now the biggest priority within internal comms and within large organizations, far above everything else.
And I presume that engagement is not only a question of what is the tool that you use. I think it's also like creating a culture in the company, isn't it?
That's exactly right. We focus too much on the tools. We focus too much on the technologies. I mean, it's rather like when they created the railways in the 19th century. Everyone was worried about putting down the tracks and building the trains, and then they started building the stations. But actually, it's what the railways did to society in terms of making people more mobile. We didn't have national newspapers until we had railways. We didn't have people going on holidays outside of their 10 miles of their radius until we had railways. This is what's happening now. We're focusing on the technology, but the technology is a means to an end. What we're going to see is a completely different way of working and collaborating in the future.
I think in large organizations also we have like different cultures that may come together when they're working like globally, and the digital space permits that those people are coming together into the same space.
Yes.
So there is here like a great opportunity of bringing like a diversity into and give a voice to the different people. How do you see that? Is that helping the companies to be much more effective also?
Well, there's two sides to this. On the one hand, you're absolutely right. We can now hire really good talent that happens to be in Poland or in Chile or wherever. And so that suddenly upped the productivity and the abilities and the competencies of our teams. The problem is the technology itself, because the technology is either Microsoft or it might be Zoom. And it means that the environment in which we work is all the same. So the environment in which we work is determined by how Microsoft lay out Teams and SharePoint and all these sorts of things. And that's a real problem, because if you have a particular strong culture in your organization, it's being diluted because the tool, the pipe which you're pushing it down, it is all the same. And it's very banal and it's very standard, if you know what I mean. So now Microsoft are working on this with their Viva suite, and so we've got Viva Engage coming down the tracks and lots of other things. But the real challenge now is, how do we not just maintain a culture and not the old culture, we need to maintain a new culture, but how do we let it thrive? And that's a combination of doing face-to-face, doing lots of events, but when you get together, it's a significant event. It's not to sit in the office and go on a Teams call. It's to get together, to innovate, to have fun. We are seeing the attendance at face-to-face events, our own face-to-face events, are just through the roof, because people say, look, if I am going to come into town, I want to come into town for a reason and for a purpose.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. And we actually are experiencing that also with in the network. Like every time that we want to make an event, we need to find a way of making it special, because we see each other day by day on the digital space.
Yeah.
But another thing that we have seen sometimes challenges is in terms of adoption from the teams. No, so it's true that we are used to work on one way, and then suddenly there are new tools that are coming, new ways of communicating. How do you see that? Do you also give some support also to the teams of how to adopt that and how to create, I suppose, guidelines, or I don't know how you do that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the research that we've done, it's called Workscape. It'll be coming out at our event in November at Simply EXP. But basically what we discovered is that 41% of communicators believe that the major issue is tech is not fit for purpose. So the technology they have currently is not up to the job. And 55% are looking to adopt new tech. So we're going to see a huge amount of new technology coming into the workplace over the next year. But that's pointless if you don't actually encourage people and help people to adopt it. And so our business is predicated not on producing websites or portals or any of that stuff. Our job is to go in there and make the business ready to work with the platforms which we recommend. And so what's great about the internal comms world is that we're one of the few functions within large organizations that kind of does engagement. So we used to do it with live events, with videos, and with brown bag lunches and all that sort of stuff. So we know how to engage people. We now have to change that skill, that competence, and apply it to the digital workplace. And so suddenly our members, and we've got 8,000 subscribers, suddenly they've got money, they've got resource, but most of all, Jesus, they've got data. So they can prove to the CEO, no one's reading your blog. It's a great blog. Thank you very much. But no one's reading it. We can prove that. But over here, this person, the finance director, everyone's listening to her. And why are they listening to her? Because she's talking about the last marathon she did. She's making it very, what's the word? Human, and bringing it alive. So the problem is that senior executives are finding it very, very difficult to engage with their staff online. They were able to sit in front of a camera and do the Zoom calls and the Teams calls during the pandemic, but now they don't really feel they should be giving it the sort of time. They don't really feel that they personally have the skills, and that's got to change because it has to come from the top.
So actually, what the pandemic has given us like an opportunity, but an opportunity to start developing this much farther, because in some way that, let's say, from what you're describing, what I see is like this is the starting point of something that can go much farther. We have started to see each other, to meet through the online, through the digital space and all, but actually there are elements that we can build much more. So like this, there is a full culture of people that are exchanging not only ideas but experiences through the digital means.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. And the thing that is missing, the thing that we all have to work on, is trust. People are not able really to trust each other in the digital sphere, and that's because of social media, and that's because for all the reasons that we know, where social media had the dark side of social media has prejudiced people against trusting what they do and the forums that they're online. But if you work for a company, you've bought that company. It's one of those important purchases in your life. It's much more important than your house and your car. You're selling them your life, your time, your work. And so people really should be able to trust the company they work for. And the Edelman Trust Barometer suggests that is the case. So capitalize on that and use what we've learned from consumer tech, all about user experience and interaction and everything we all know about. Use that to build trust, because trust is a thing that's lacking in the world at the moment in spades.
That's a really, really nice point. Thank you for that. I have here Daniele saying hello, happy Fridays, everybody. I see Arthur also there saying hello and saying that it's great that we have you as a guest. Actually, with Danielle, I've been working during these last weeks, creating a space in the virtual space for the EU influencer. That it was during last week. It was like I think it was a great success. I'm very happy. The people of communication did it very nicely. And actually, we created a virtual space. So, I'm a big fan of VR. I'm always with the VR headset around. And actually, I was wondering, how do you see these new technologies like VR, augmented reality, supporting all this, the possibility of bringing together people in organizations in the digital space? You see room here to develop into that?
Well, I'm a pragmatist, and I know that it's going to happen. The reason why it's going to happen is because Microsoft and Meta are investing billions in this, absolutely billions in it. So, and because we have this huge gaming environment ecosystem, which has been doing it for 10, 15 years. So we know that it's coming. The issue is that the current versions of it and the way that Zuckerberg's been selling it and the way, to a certain extent, that Satya Nadella has been selling it, it looks a bit naff. It looks like it's just recreating the meeting room. If you think about Amazon, what Amazon didn't try to recreate a shop store. It didn't try to recreate a supermarket. It said, what can you do online particularly well? On that search and getting recommendations and so on. So they designed something that was completely different to the 3D equivalent, and the rest is history. We need to do the same thing with the metaverse. We absolutely do. And I actually think that maybe AR is probably more important in this respect than VR is. That we will be working all the time and traveling all the time and even in meetings all the time with some kind of glasses on that will just give us the data through AI that otherwise we'd be going off and Googling and so on and so forth. It's crucial. In terms of engagement, well, that's down to us, really. We need to come up with the gamification. We need to come up with the systems, the ways in which we can engage people properly in these new media.
I remember at the time when we were starting to develop websites, like already some years ago, where there were
a long time ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah, but at that time there were like best practices that were kind of being built at the time. Like for example, the fact that when you click on the logo, you go to the homepage. Those were like things that were accepted by the developers and designers, and then with time becoming like best practices that nowadays are used. I believe that on the virtual space, this kind of gestures or way of interacting and all that is starting little by little being constructive. And I agree with you. We don't need to replicate totally what is on reality, because we already have reality. So there are plenty of possibilities of making it something different.
Yeah, we just need to get rid of these. Let's ban these things.
Yes.
Get rid of keyboards and just have an interface which is faster and a better UX. And we've already seen that with mobile, but mobile still have damn keyboards on them. So yeah, that's the first step. Get rid of the keyboard and make it all voice enabled.
Totally agree. I think it's time now to go for recommendations. Yes, so let's go for it. Okay, so Mark, what is your recommendation for the week?
Well, look, this is a little bit self-serving, I know, but I really do recommend that you go to Spotify and just and go for the Simply podcast. One word, Simply podcast. What we do, it's not about us, it's about people in the industry. And we go out and interview key voices and key people, and we put them up there. So people you'll know very well, like Celine Schillinger was an early member of it, and so on. So if you're a communicator and you want to hear what other communicators around the world are doing, the Simply podcast, and you can find it obviously just by Googling it. But I recommend that very, very strongly.
Great. We will listen to it with attention. For me, what I will do is to invite people to come to this virtual space, actually, that we created, because it's a kind of history of the different editions that we have done of the Influencer, where you can see videos and also some NFTs that we created there. So
Brilliant.
If people can get some of them, so there they are. So we will put the link below on the different channels so people can visit it. And now, Mark, just the time to say until the next time. So it's been a great pleasure to have you here. It's been nice to see you again, and I think I'm sure that we will see each other.
I do hope so. I do hope so. Look forward to it. From a sunny Paddington, farewell from London.
Okay, here is a kind of cloudy Brussels. So
don't be.
Nice to have you here. Thank you very much, and see you next Friday. Bye bye. Friday.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.